All right, I feel like I got to set the record straight here because I've been hearing a lot of rumors, and we need to figure out what really is going on. And also, we're going to talk about where the company is. We're talking about the 800-pound gorilla. We're talking about Black and Yellow. We're talking about DeWalt. So we're going to give you the full backstory on the company, how they went from where they were to where they are now, why it's an issue you need to look at, what some things you need to consider, and basically whether it's a buy or don't buy kind of situation these days. But first, let me thank today's sponsor. Well, really an unsponsor. This is Audible didn't reach out to me, but you know what? It's a company that I use a lot personally. I've been using Audible for pretty much since they launched, and it is absolutely fantastic. I have 500 books, no lie, 500 books in my library. I think this is, if you want to get started, this is a great one. Yeah, you can get your first 30 days for free. Go sign up with the link down below. It is an affiliate link, but this isn't sponsored. They didn't ask me to do this. But this book is Kick Up Some Dust. It's by Bernie Marcus, the guy who founded Home Depot. Before you listen to this, go watch my video I did on Home Depot. Man, it is a drama fest. It's a true American story about building something bigger, better, and stronger, and overcoming the current competitors out there in the market. Basically, they kicked Lowe's in the what and stole their lunch money. So it's a great listen. Go check it out. But let's keep going here. So as I said, we're talking about ye old DeWalt. And they're so popular these days, they're known as DeWalt. They make everything you can imagine when it comes to construction. But, the parent company is Stanley Black & Decker. And Black & Decker was, for years and years, the name brand, the name power tool brand. That was it. Black & Decker was where it's at. They started 100 plus years ago. But so did this other company that made these things called radial arm saws. And that was DeWalt. And that's all they made. Somewhere along the line, I don't remember if it was Stanley or Black & Decker bought them and then was like, we're not going to do the radial arm saw thing. And they sold that part off, but they kept the name. And that just kept in their Rolodex of brands that they owned. But then over the years, Black & Decker kind of changed their ways. If you look at their this is their website today, the number one thing they have is cleaning. Number two is kitchen and bar. Outdoors, tools is number four. And this is not alphabetical because then we go to home and new and best stuff. Tools are their fourth most important thing. And I don't think they're wrong because they're not focused on tools in the least bit. Look at this. This looks like a fantastic ice bucket from Black & Decker. Anyway, which is sad because Black & Decker was they were one of the founders in power tools. They made the first real handheld drill. It was a two-hand drill. It was a big sucker. You weren't just clipping that to your belt and going on the job site. And then they were instrumental in World War II. They kept the boys flying. They did all sorts of work. They were one of the premier tools that helped us win the war. They even helped us get into space. Black & Decker made tools to be used in space. When it came to professional, Black & Decker and professional were synonymous, at least until the 70s and 80s. Then we got stuff like coffee makers and toaster ovens and irons for some reason. I'll be honest, they make a wicked rice cooker these days. But I think at some point people were like, do they even know how to make tools anymore? And I'll be honest, I'm not sure they did, because this is the tools they came out with back then. The 9-inch miter saw, the hedge trimmer. Look at this 3/8 VSR drill. I remember I lived through this time. These were not high-grade tools, and people were not thrilled about it, to be honest. In fact, it got to the point where they got such a bad reputation. They were considered the same way people would look at, cheap tools from China kind of today. They were just, those are just cheap knockoffs. They're not what they wanted to be. And pros wouldn't buy them. For the average Joe homeowner, maybe, yeah, sure, they can buy it. But for the pro, they weren't even going to consider it, which is sad because they were still making professional grade tools. This is a Black & Decker professional grade tool. It's the VSR, variable speed reversible. And if you look, just squint your eyes and pretend it's yellow. It's not any different than the tool being sold today. But because of the reputation of Black & Decker, because they'd gone so consumer-based, the pros wanted nothing to do with it. So Black & Decker was like, well, what do we do? There, no one wants to buy our stuff. And they were like, we need to change something. And so I was like, we need to change our name. They can't change, like, we can't change the name of the company. They're like, well, we'll create a new brand. And they tried to come up with all these brand ideas. And then someone went through the Rolodex and was like, well, let me see here. We got this, we got this. Oh, DeWalt, they've got a great name, and we're not doing squat with this right now. So they did some sacred rites around midnight at the cemetery and raised the zombie DeWalt brand to what it was, which was radial arm saws, and slapped them on power tools. That was in, I think it was 1992, 1994, there, about early 90s. Again, I lived through this. This is when I was in construction. I remember going to the store and going, who the heck is this? I've never heard of this brand. And my boss was like, that's Stanley Black. That's Black & Decker, not Stanley. It was Black & Decker. He's like, that's just Black & Decker painted yellow. He's like, you will never see that on our job site. We're not buying those. He's like, they're junk. But I'm like, yeah, how do you know they're junk? You've never tried them. The reputation was carrying over, but a lot of people apparently didn't know and were happy enough to try it. Also, 2 years later, they launched their first cordless line, and it was an instant success. People adopted it quickly, and they became the juggernaut that they are today because they were making quality tools, they were getting their first to market and having a great time. But like many companies, they kind of sat on their laurels, which is why I'm showing you this. This is the DeWalt 20 volt max cordless drill. Comes with two 1.3 amp hour batteries, and it still costs $100. They say the list price is $179. Now, I'm not sure what flavor of crack they're cooking over there, but it's got to be some of the blue stuff. It's got to be good. I guess that's a math. Anyway, cross-referencing my drug jokes there. The point is this thing, they've been selling this since before I started YouTube. It's probably older than most of my children. Okay, maybe not quite, but it is a hunk of junk. Now, for the person at home who's maybe like installing cabinets or stuff as an electric screwdriver, probably decent. But I made the joke one time on the channel that the chuck on this was so weak that if you twisted it too hard, you could snap it off. And my neighbor accidentally did the very next day. It is that kind of cheap. I mean, smaller batteries, everything about this is all about cutting corners on cost, and that's where DeWalt had gotten to. They were like, we're so far ahead of everyone, no one else can touch us. We don't need to keep up. And then a little company called Milwaukee said, well, about that, we're going to take most of your, or at least half your user base. And they have become, or at least they did become for a long time, the absolute power, fast-moving juggernaut of, like, all the hip kids were switching to Milwaukee. And before you get all excited, you Milwaukee fanboys are like, that's right, because we're the best. I just want to point out, Milwaukee got sold in 2005. It's no longer the same company, the same people, the same manufacturing. They got sold to the company who before that was best known for making tools for Ryobi. So basically you're buying upgraded Ryobi, all right? I just want to be clear. These tool brands change, things change. These people get locked in, become fanboys. Don't ever become a fanboy. All right, just use your head. Think about it. If the company decides to not support you and not put out the best tools, maybe it's time to think of someone else. All right, they're not sports teams, folks. All right. Anyway, finally, at some point, or not Milwaukee, but DeWalt, Black & Decker, woke up and said, "We gotta figure something out." It's kind of funny. It reminds me. I'm gonna tell you a quick story. Way back in the day when I was young and stupid, I was going out and partying in like downtown. With some in a big city downtown with some friends, and we ended up at some dude's party in a part of town that I'd never been to. And I walk in, and everyone's sitting there, and there's clouds of smoke and drinking and stuff. And my friends ran off to do something else. I'm just kind of waiting, and they're playing Street Fighter on the old Nintendo. Now I actually was pretty good at Street Fighter. I could beat about anybody in the arcade. I could definitely beat anybody in my large friends group. I was the go-to man at Street Fighter. And they're sitting there playing. They go, "Hey, you want a shot?" And I'm like, "Sure." And I mopped the floor with them. I beat everybody in the room. And they're like, "All right, well, we got to fix this." Hey, 40. And I didn't notice it before. You think I'm a big guy. There was a big guy over in the corner, passed out in a Barco lounger with a 40 in the crook of his arm. And he woke up with one eye open, took the controller, and completely, beat me senseless at Street Fighter. That's kind of what DeWalt did. DeWalt was like, oh, Milwaukee's in my pockets here. We're going to fix that. And they woke up and they've revamped the entire XR system. They came out with the Atomic, which is a reduced size. Think about what Makita did with their subcompacts. It's the same kind of stuff. Takes the high power 20 volt batteries, but in a subcompact form factor, all of it brushless. Fantastic. Now, DeWalt makes brushed, which I think in most cases you want to avoid. The brushless stuff is that Goldilocks middle zone, which is kind of decent for like, I can see like prosumer DIYers who want higher level stuff, but they can't afford the XR, but they do want brushless performance and stuff like that. It's okay. The XR, which is all brushless, equivalent to Milwaukee's Fuel, fantastic. And then what Milwaukee doesn't have is that subcompact level. Now they're kind of kicking that over to rigid these days. But with DeWalt, you can just like, I can take my XR batteries and I can put them in my Atomic stuff, and it's fan-freaking-tastic. And they've really changed the game. I want to go through, I got about a dozen tools I think that you should take a look at that are real game changers that have come out in the past couple years and shown that, they always were the 800-pound gorilla, but they've kind of woken up. And that is, boy, my voice. Sorry about that. Anyway, the cordless drill, the XR drill is fantastic. The Atomic series, which is smaller, faster, and it's just great. I love lightweight, small, compact tools. Their 3-speed hammer drill has, of course, always been a beast. The Atomic 20-volt Impact and the 20-volt Max XR Impact are both absolutely phenomenal. Their circ saws. Brother, their circ saws, this thing can outperform most corded saws when you run it with, that's the other thing, their battery system. They have the stacked lithium kind of stuff. They have the standard. They have the, using 18650s. They have the 2700s. They have, is that 21s? Anyway, the bigger lithium-ion batteries. And they've got their own system that's flexible that is just up to 60 volts. And when you use it with some of the stuff with it's either 60 volt max or the flexible or advantage kind of stuff, it absolute powerhouse. You can't say enough about them. The grinders, here's the basic flexible advantage grinder. Here's the big boy grinder, 60 volt max there. We got the oscillating multi-tool, which I've talked about extensively on a channel, and its little brother, the Atomic. Now, I do want to say this. They do have a 12 volt line, which is, they used to be absolutely terrible. And again, they woke up, they started making the Extreme. They're called Extreme 12-volt system. They're all brushless. They're fantastic. There just isn't really enough of a choice out there. They only have like a handful of tools. They're solid tools, but you know, when you compare it against what Makita has or what Milwaukee has, the 12-volt line just, it's not quite there, so it's kind of hard to recommend it. But the Atomic stuff is fantastic. And then Impact in the trenches, man. This thing has just been blowing Milwaukee away at the high impact, even at the mid impact. They're really just, again, woke up and found Milwaukee in their house and just went to town on them. And in ratchets, man, this sealed head ratchet is just doing stuff that Milwaukee, it was like, wow, why didn't we think about that? And in the Atomic line, again, if you're looking for that subcompact, they have it as well. Now, not everything is, nice and rosy over there. This is the DWS 780R. They have not really changed. They did an update to their saws about 4 or 5 years ago when Harbor Freight came out with the Hercules, and Hercules started eating their lunch at $300. So they made some minor updates, but honestly, they're not significantly better. And at $550, they're definitely not $250 better. Many people have been going towards the Bosch Glide system, the Hitachi saws, even the guys who make the Delta Cruiser and the new Rigid saw. There's a lot of other options out there for less money that are doing just as good. And you're seeing more and more people move away from DeWalt because of that, at least when it comes to the miter saws. Also, let's talk about hand tools. They have decent hand tools. They just don't have a huge, massive, choice when it comes to hand tools, at least when you compare it to true hand tool companies. They're not going to compete with Tecton or Snap-on or even Harbor Freight. But if you just need basic sets to start with, sets like this for $180, 192 piece, you're getting 3 ratchets, all the extensions, you're getting deeps and shallows, some bit drivers, a little bit of filler, and decent case. I mean, they're good for that. They're good for like one-off kind of standalone sets. And that's what I usually recommend them for. I'm not a huge fan of the ratchets just because of the ergonomics, but it doesn't make them a bad ratchet. They're not a great ratchet. But for $180 to get a set this extensive, that's not a terrible deal. Now, other areas, let's talk about modular tool storage. Of course, Milwaukee is the one that just is king of the castle. With the pack out, DeWalt's coming in with this also ran, kind of run up behind them going, we got stuff. We got stuff. Is it bad? No, it's not bad at all. It's just, it's close enough in price. You're like, well, it clearly is going to have like the same level. And it's getting better. It's getting better, but it's not at the level of availability of all the different kind of modular, stuff that, pack out can do. You can probably find a way to, put an adapter and click your kids into a pack out system. There's just, the DeWalt's not there. And they've kind of abandoned one of my favorite budget systems, which is the T-Stack system. Now, I still have a T-Stack system. I think it's a great system for beginner DIYers who don't need all that kind of tomfoolery you see with the bigger systems. And of course, I always like to remind people that it's directly compatible with Craftsman VersaStack. They're the same system, just a different paint job, and you can interconnect them. They're a nice option, again, for the DIYer, but they're going to get harder and harder to find because even VersaStack has moved away to a higher tier one as well. I think they call it the Pro Stack or anyway, I can't remember what it is, but they're moving away from it also. But it's still available. It's still out there. You can still find it. Now, the rumors that are going around that kind of prompted this is twofold, which is, A, that the first rumor I've heard is that Milwaukee is the top-selling hand or power tool in North America, and that's just simply not true. They used to be 50% of what DeWalt was, and since I've been doing YouTube, they have taken a bigger and bigger bite, but DeWalt is still the number one out there, all right? The second rumor I hear is that DeWalt is getting kicked out of Home Depot. And if you do a Google search, this rumor has been going around for years. I've reached out to every contact I have. No one would really comment, or most people either A, wouldn't comment on it, and the people who would said, no, that's not happening. The fact of the matter is that DeWalt is sold in, let me put it this way. Home Depot has a close tie with TTI, and they have been kicking a lot of people out. So could this happen? I would not be stunned if it did happen, but I would be slightly surprised if they would push that kind of money away because DeWalt is still a significant seller over there and often featured first on their list of items during their sale lists, okay? You can buy DeWalt at Home Depot. You can buy it at Lowe's. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it almost anywhere. I'm pretty sure they sell it at 7-Eleven these days. You can get DeWalt in all sorts of places and all sorts of flavors. Milwaukee is going to be primarily at Home Depot and then over at like little regional stores and smaller places. You're not going to see them at Lowe's and you're not going to see them at Menards. So could it happen? Yes, it could happen, but it's been a rumor that people have been pushing for years. People are constantly asking me, "Hey, is it going to happen?" If I had to bet money on it, I would say no. But again, I wouldn't be totally surprised if it did, just because Home Depot seems to be really dedicated in turning themselves into the TT High store. If you agree with me, I'd love to hear what you have to say down below. If you got any inside information and want to try and prove me wrong, say, yeah, they're kicking them out, put it down in the comments. While you're down there, don't forget to chomp the old like button, smash that subscribe, ring the bell on the way out. You all take care, God bless, and as always, shine on.